I kill people for a living, and I've never been afraid of anything in my whole life. Until now. I know, but stick with me here. I'm not gonna dive into all the personal crap leading up to this story. Not because I'm worried about boring you, in fact, I think you'd probably love to hear it. I'm an interesting guy, but frankly, it's not your business. All you need to know is that I've always liked to fight, but fighting doesn't make money on the street, and I was tired of being broke. So I graduated to killing, and I took to it like a fish to water. I do it clean, and I never touch anybody who I wasn't hired to touch. I have contacts. People go to my contacts for requests, not me. I'm no good with people anyway, and if I'm keen on the job, I take it. That's how this gig started. I don't quite know where to start a story like this, but it seems natural to begin like the day does, in the morning. I got a small place on top of a bistro called Virgo's. Sounds like a nice place from the name, I know, but it smells like hot dogs and cat piss. I don't mind. I'm only there to sleep, and when I'm sleeping, I can't smell it all. I rose early on a Sunday. I saw frost on the window, so I threw on a coat and walked quickly downstairs, dipping into Virgo's for a cup of coffee. I had a meeting. Early, Mike said. He ran the place. He always had something to say. I didn't think your coffin opened till 9. I laughed along with him. Some days you remember everybody else is getting by just like you, trying to make things pleasant, and other days you forget. That day I remembered. Mike burnt the coffee, my reward for being nice. Next time he made a joke, I'd sock him in his face. When I arrived, my contact was waiting for me. We didn't like to meet at the same place more than once every few months. This time it was at the park. He was pushing his daughter on the swing set. As I got closer, I heard her ask her dad who I was. "A friend," he said. "Just a minute, honey." He walked over to the slide where I was waiting. She just sat there, sneakers dangling in the swing, too short to brush the wood chips, turning her head like an owl to watch us. As I spoke to her dad, I kept glancing over his shoulder at her to smile. She didn't smile back. I had a stupid urge to make faces. I didn't. "You got one of your own?" he asked as he lit a cigarette. "You shouldn't ask things like that," I said plainly. "All right," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Here." He handed me a sheet of paper with an address written on it. 5 o'clock, get rid of this when you can. I nodded and waved goodbye to his daughter. She just kicked her feet and stared. My target was a woman. I don't often kill women, but I don't mind it. Every Sunday at 5 o'clock, this woman liked to go for a swim in an indoor pool, winter, spring, summer, and fall. Apparently she had some money. I didn't care. I take it as a personal point of pride if I know absolutely nothing more about my targets than the bare necessities. Not from any moral code. I've killed plenty of people I know, even friends, but just plain lack of interest. It came as a surprise that this pool was located in an industrial district. I guess looking back, it should have been my first clue that something was off, but I won't kick myself over it. I've been sent to every corner of the city for work, from posh country clubs to crack dens. And the ultimate truth remains that anyone, and I mean anyone, is one mistake away from being dead. I still had some time, so I went back to my place to make some special preparations. I took a broom from the stoop of Virgo's in one hand and my duffel bag in another, and I trotted down the alley until I reached the dumpster. I sprang open the lid and heard the scuttle of little rat paws as they scattered from the light. I swung the broom high from over my head and smashed down as hard as I could on a particularly fat-looking dude who had his head stuck in a takeout box. He was still as a doormat. I opened my duffel to grab plastic gloves and a plastic bag. I scooped the guy up, sealed him in, and threw him in my duffel along with my normal job materials. Leather gloves, a length of wire, and a .32 handgun. I didn't expect I would need the gun, but I always took it with. You might expect me to carry more, but it's not necessary. You wouldn't believe how easy it is to kill a person. I swiped a car, some ugly brown Kia, and drove downtown an hour early to scout the place out. From what my contact said, I expected it to be a dump. But when I parked between two old beater cars and saw the windowless storefront and the leaning letters in cracked blue paint that plainly read "Pool," I was sure I came to the wrong place. She was supposed to be driving a Mercedes, but I didn't see it anywhere yet. I wanted to go inside, at least to see the door, but I didn't want to be seen snooping. My contact had explained the layout well enough. See, she had a private pool inside, some special arrangement, down an employee hallway that was just behind the desk, locked with a special key. There was a room that was reserved just for her. My contact said that door was the only entrance and the only exit. No windows, not an ideal spot. Normally, I'd just kill her somewhere else. Her driveway or a grocery store parking lot. Somewhere I could get away right after. But before I walked away from my contact, he grabbed my shoulder. One more thing, he had said. Get her in the pool room before she touches the water. Understand? Don't let her in the water. Another clue that things were off, and one so obvious he basically beat me over the head with it. As I sat there waiting, I wondered why it mattered so much that she stayed dry. I thought maybe they didn't want to drain the pool from the blood, but if that was the case, there wasn't any reason it had to be in the room, and certainly not before she swam. What difference did it make? Maybe the client hated her so much he wanted to deprive her of her joy just before she entered, like some sort of Tantalus-style torment. Or maybe she was like a gremlin. Just add water for an instant monstrous surprise. It didn't matter why it needed to be done this way. It only mattered that I did it. After a little while, the hum of the heater started and the lack of anything to do started to get me a little drowsy. I startled myself awake. The Mercedes was just arriving. I almost missed her, goddammit. What a monumentally stupid mistake on my end. I should have got a second coffee from Virgo's, burnt or not. I was acting nervous how I used to back when I was green. Thinking back on it, maybe part of me knew how weird this job was. I watched her swing open the car door. She had no coat. She was wearing a translucent swim cover with a striped blue-white bikini underneath. Her skin was unseasonably tan. I could see the soft flecks of muscle in her legs as she swung out her sandaled foot and manicured toes. I will admit that I was stirred, but I don't let these things get to me. She would make a beautiful corpse. I snatched the duffel bag from my passenger seat and I followed her inside. I caught the door just before it closed. The pool was worse inside than out. The floor was covered in cracked tiles with brown grout. The walls were weeping with humidity, and the towels folded on the shelves behind the desk were basically rags. The air was chlorine itself. To the left of the desk was the entrance to the main pool. I saw through the window that there were only 1 or 2 families inside. To the right was the locker room, and finally behind the desk and straight down the hallway was a door. That's the one. My target was talking casually with the clerk when she noticed me behind her. I couldn't help but note the joy on his face. He was pretty into her. And if I can tell something like that, then it's really obvious. "Oh, you go ahead, sir," she said and gestured me forward. I guess she didn't want people watching her sneak to the back. There was a sign above the desk, $12.50 for adults. I didn't want to pay that. "Is it cool if I hit the locker room first?" I said, half to her, half to the clerk. "I really gotta use the bathroom." "Go for it, man," he said flippantly, and as soon as he did, he seemed to forget I existed. "Thanks, bro," I said, flashing a surf's up gesture. Not sure why. My target laughed at that, and then they resumed their conversation as I walked into the locker room. The room was completely empty. There was a wall of beaten-up lockers with tiny padlocks on one end, a couple urinals and a stall in the corner, and a row of showers on the other wall. Perfect. I zipped open the duffel and pulled out the rat. Blood had thickened in the bottom of the bag. I guess it was cold in the trunk. His limbs were all tense and his tail was curled up into his mouth. I put the plastic gloves back on and slipped the rat out of the bag into one of the shower stalls. He plopped down on the linoleum with a wet plap. His chilled blood sloughed out of the bag in viscous clumps, and I shook him all over until the tile was painted. I needed to keep the clerk busy for a while. I took the gun, the wire, and the gloves and tucked them in my waistband, leaving my duffel on a bench. Then I glanced out of the locker room window. My target had finished talking, and she was headed to the back. Perfect timing. But then, almost as if she sensed me, she turned around quickly, staring me right in the eye. I was frozen. She made no expression. She turned away, walking down the hall fast. She had a keen eye for peeping toms, I guess. It seemed natural that a woman like that would develop such an awareness of perverts. I didn't think she suspected me of anything more than that. I walked out of the lockers with disgust on my face. "Hey buddy, I never been here before, but I don't think there's supposed to be a bloody rat corpse in the shower, is there?" I said. The clerk was dumbfounded. "A what?" "A rat, R-A-T, big as your face, man, looks like somebody stomped him to death or something. You're gonna need a mop." "Oh God," he sighed, again. He grunted and grabbed a bucket and a mop from the closet. "I'm gonna wait here if it's cool with you. Hurry, hurry before the pretty lady sees." He scoffed as he shouldered past me and into the locker room. That distraction should give me plenty of time to slip in, kill her, and slip out before he gets back to the desk. I slipped behind the desk. I was a little worried that she might have already slipped into the pool, but there was no helping it. They say the rushed monkey drops the banana. The door was painted matte black. The sound of children splashing had dampened as I stalked down the hall. I could hear only the turning of the latch as I opened the door. It could have been locked, I thought. I was so stupid and amateur for letting that slip my mind. It could have been locked, you damn moron. But it wasn't. I had my shoulder against the wood as I eased it open. It was heavy enough for a bank vault. Matter of fact, I'd entered similar doors before in high-security buildings like server rooms, casino offices, that type of place. I guarantee that thing had been reinforced with a steel plate. One thing I never saw before, though, was a door like that left unlocked. I didn't even see a lock mechanism, electronic or otherwise. Darkness as the door swung open, until finally I saw the blue, rippling glow of the pool. It was lit along the sides with white light, and it shimmered like heat waves on a desert horizon. I'm sorry for getting poetical, but the image of it, I still see it when I close my eyes. With the door now fully open, the hallway light should have spilled in, but I cast no shadow on the dark tiled ground. It's like by entering the room I left the rest of the world, and now it was only me, the pool, and my target. She wasn't swimming yet, but she was close. She was facing away from me, her figure just a silhouette against the blue. I breathed in, and then I went and did something I never did before. I got lost in the moment. I know I could have had the wire on her neck before she jumped if I just moved, but I couldn't. I was out of step, and before I knew it, my chance was blown and she was bending down to dive. "Ma'am," I cried. My hand fell to the gun in my waistband. She looked at me over her shoulder. Her features were underlit by the pool lights. I saw her eyes flick down at the gun glinting on my hip. Her face didn't flinch. Stone cold, man. Then before I could react, she dove into the pool. As soon as she touched the water, it went black. I blinked. I thought my vision had gone out. It was completely, hopelessly dark. I turned around for a switch, but there was no hallway, no desk. The door had closed silently behind me. I didn't hear the sounds of swimming. I didn't hear anything. I tottered in the black with my hands extended, feeling for the door, but I could feel nothing. It should have been right there, right behind me. But I shuffled forward 10, 20, 30 steps, and still there was nothing but darkness ahead of me and darkness behind. My breathing quickened. I was starting to panic, I guess, but only a little. I'm not afraid of the dark, never bothered me. But this was more than dark. I ran my hands along my shirt to make sure that I hadn't become darkness too. I was relieved to feel the cotton of my clothes, the hairs along my arm, and the hard impression of my tools against my waist. Good. I stopped moving and forced myself to be sensible. My target knew I was coming. That wasn't strange at all. Most people who end up as my targets aren't surprised when they see me in their last moments. I guess this lady was the same way no matter how unassuming she appeared. So I guess this was a trap. Maybe not a trap, but an evasive maneuver at least. The pool lights were remote, but I saw nothing in her hands as she brought them together to dive, so maybe by her feet. And there could be a switch beside the pool, that must be it. But where did the door go? It couldn't have disappeared. I was so confident that I had done a 180. But thinking back on it then, I couldn't be convinced that I had fixed my feet correctly. I must have turned left and started walking parallel to the wall. So that meant the wall should be 90 degrees left. I reached out and felt nothing. I turned left a little and walked a few paces, reaching out again. Nothing again, more left, more paces, more nothing. At that point, my panic was rearing up again. I had no idea where I was in the room anymore. And even worse, I had no idea where the pool might be. My feet became lead. When I was a kid, my stepdad would take me out to the lake every winter for a week to ice fish. No soft stuff with the shanty and the heater. We drove out in our Chevy, grabbed the auger and the yard shares and dropped our lines. It wasn't every winter that the ice was thick enough though. When it was a thin year, we would stay inside with Mom and play board games, drink cocoa and watch old VHS tapes. I hated that. One thin year, I think I was 10, I decided there was no such thing as a thin year. I grabbed my rod and tackle box and set out for the ice behind their backs. The plan was to shuffle out with a big rock and toss her in. Instant ice hole. It was going swimmingly. And I was starting to fantasize about my lake record walleye. Until I heard a crack. I looked back at the shore in horror. What must have been 15 yards felt like 15 miles. I held the rock to my chest and eased my feet across the ice. Each step was another certainty that the ice would give way and I would be trapped under the sheet. One mistake away from death. In my head, this was so much worse. Logically, even if I did fall in, I could easily grab the edge of the pool and pull myself out, wet and frustrated but safe. I didn't need light to do that. But then again, that's how I felt about the door too. So I didn't move. I wasn't scared, I was rational. My plan was to wait. I bent over, feeling the cold tile floor around me, turning in a circle until I was certain I was surrounded by solid ground. Then I sat down. One entrance, one exit, no lock on the door. If she wanted to stay in here with me for a while, that was fine by me. I'd get her one way or another. "This is unusual," I said. I felt the rattle in my skull, but it felt like my words dribbled from my lips into my lap. There was no reverberation in the darkness and there was no response. I kept going anyway. "I always liked the pool," I continued. "It's a nice smell, isn't it?" As soon as I said that, I realized that the chlorine smell was gone. I smelled nothing at all. Apart from the cold tile under me, I was in a sensory deprivation chamber. "It's a good place to die," I said. "Quiet." I started to feel stupid. I didn't know if she heard me, but I thought maybe she did. I decided to shut up. I was sure the clerk had cleaned the rat by that point. I began to consider how I might leave after I killed this lady. In the case that I found her in the dark, I would get her with the wire or maybe just my hands, and then I'd go hunting for either the door or the light panel on the floor. Even if I found neither, I figured the clerk would be in to check on her eventually. I would probably have to kill him too. Unfortunate. And in the case that she made for the door, I would see the hallway light. And then I'd know where the door was. If she ran, I'd chase her and I'd kill her, witnesses or not. And I'd skip town for a while. I'd done it before. I had a forgettable face. "I agree," she said. I straightened with a jolt. I looked everywhere, but I couldn't tell where the sound had come from. "There you are," I said joyfully. "I thought I lost you." "I thought I lost you too," she said. It seemed to come from all around me. I had her talking at least. "Do you always swim in the dark?" "Sometimes," she said, and this time I thought I knew where she was. "You should try it, the water is fine tonight." "You're a quiet swimmer," I said as I rose softly to my feet. "Who said I was swimming?" she replied. It sounded like she was right in front of me, so close I could reach her. I swung out a fist wildly. "Nothing." "Oh, that would have hurt." She laughed, now from somewhere else entirely. That made me nervous. Had she seen me? I couldn't hear anything but her voice, so surely she couldn't hear my swing. The image of her treading water in a clunky night vision headset almost made me laugh. Still though, I couldn't help but feel like our footing wasn't as even as I thought. Suddenly I saw a light. The room remained covered in darkness, but the shape of the light was unmistakable. The door was opening. I saw the shadow of her body against it. "Wait for me," I laughed. She didn't know it, but she had just lost the game. I began to run after her. She couldn't shut it on me now, I was too close. She had misjudged my position. And with the door revealed, it was over. It was only a few steps before I felt the water. I fell headfirst into the pool. The water rushed over my face and up my nose like a saline rinse, warm and salty. This was ocean water. My clothes clung to me as I thrashed to orient myself. I kicked and swam until my head broke the surface and I was treading water. No need to panic yet. I turned around and paddled for the ledge. Where did it go? Stroke after stroke and still nothing. The water was a pulsating ink. I turned around in the water. The light was still there. Her shadow was still there too. "You're stuck with it tonight," she said, giggling to herself. The light began to thin into a sliver. Wait, I cried, spitting water out of my mouth frantically. Her voice came again like it was inside my head. "Just keep swimming. Try not to let it find you." I could hear the smile on her face. With that, the light was gone and I was alone in the dark water. Or so I hoped.